Everybody is crazy about their mechanics. How do I improve my aim, my crosshair placement, my movement? And while these are all super important and can take you a long way, you won't be able to climb high in Valorant ranked without the other extremely important piece to the puzzle, your utility. Utility usage is talked about way too little for how important it is, and we're going to change that today by covering it in the second part of my How to Climb series. The first fundamental skill you need to develop when it comes to utility is doing your job, which means using your agent's kit correctly to fulfill its role. There is nothing worse than having a controller who doesn't smoke off choke points when the enemy team is about to rush a site, or players dying to an AWP because your Reyna or Initiator don't clear the common angles with some utility, or getting flanked because your Cypher doesn't put up tripwires. So simply do your job. Now, I think the biggest skill gap in terms of utility usage comes from having good timings. You need to know when and when not to use utility. I would say that most players make the mistake of using their utility too little and too late. As soon as the round starts, the race is on. Use your stuff to put yourself into advantageous positions right away. Throw a smoke to deny some info, use a Reyna flash to clear the first angle, use your jet dash to try and get an early first blood, use a dart or a flash to get some info. The list is endless. The same goes for mid rounds. If you're missing info on defense, then use whatever you have in your kit to get some and clear space so that you can narrow down where the enemy is. If you're playing slow on attack, then don't hesitate to use utility to pressure and gain space safely or get info. I'm an Initiator main, and especially in solo queue I always struggled to get impact because I was trying to coordinate everything and didn't want to waste my Sova drone, for example. What really helped me was to stop the perfectionism and just use the damn thing, because any kind of info is useful and you never know who might be behind the next angle, who you then tag with the drone and suddenly set up a kill that opens up the entire round. Now let's talk about the other side, when using utility is actually not a good idea and you should just stick with your gun. First ground rule is that you never pull out a piece of util when you could get peeked at any moment. Keep your perfect crosshair placement and keep your gun out until you're able to tuck in a corner, pull out your utility, use it, and then peek again with your rifle in hand. You want to keep the timings on which the enemy can catch you with your pants down as short as possible. Never walk around with util in hand debating if you're going to use it or not. Next up, any situation that depends on you being able to fight right away is a situation where you want to stick with your gun. For example, when the enemy team is rushing you and you're about to get peeked. Or a super common one, when you're in a man advantage situation and you just need to play out the trades. I cannot tell you how many throws I caused and watched as well, because instead of just shooting a distracted enemy in the head from the side, we always seem to think it's a better idea to pull out that flash or dart or whatever and use it as a complete overkill. If you're heavy in the advantage to get the kill, then keep it simple and just shoot bullets. Speaking about shooting bullets, you can now learn how to win more gunfights from none other than the legend Waifu himself, who's a Radiant Pro who played for the likes of 100 Thieves and NRG. We just released the brand new gunfighting mastery course that we worked on with him, and you can currently get a big 50% discount on that. Waifu is teaching you all his little secrets to come out on top in fights in that course, so make sure to not miss out on that. The link is in the description. Now there's a piece of utility I want to talk about specifically. Ultimates. They are probably the util piece that is the most underused, which is crazy as it's the strongest util piece in every agent's kit. Here's something game changing once you really understand it. Valorant is a snowbally game. What does that mean? It means that you can generate an advantage and then from that advantage generate an even bigger advantage. One reason for that is the financial economy and a team that loses some rounds being forced to eco, meaning they lose more. The other reason is the ultimate economy, meaning that you win some rounds, you farm orbs, you use your ults to win another round, force an eco, farm even more orbs and have your ult again a couple rounds later, winning you that round again, and so on. You might have heard casters talk about this in pro play, but it's very relevant for solo queue as well, since that is heavily momentum based. The second you have your ultimate ability available, you want to look for a way to use it. I see players not using their ult in a 2 versus 1 and ending up losing, then having to eco, not using it again, dying early the round after that, and then maybe using it 4 rounds after they got it. Or even worse, someone like a KO having ult on attack and not being able to call a simple rush and use their ult for it. As an initiator, Sova is one of my favorite examples. So many Sova players wait for the perfect moment when they tag someone with the drone or whatever. No, just watch the map, ping where the enemy is going and rip that thing. You can decide rounds 5 seconds in by getting 2 kills, and so what are you waiting for? So keep that in mind from now on, cycle your ults as early as possible so that you can use them 2 to 3 times a half, make your teammates aware and call them to do the same and start snowballing your games. Now the kind of advanced tips don't stop there though, because to round out this video I want to talk about counter utility. Think about this following scenario and if it feels familiar to you. You play against a team that actually uses their utility well, and when they rush your side, everything gets thrown at you. A dart backside, a flash, a stun, and you just sit there, get run over without any counterplay, it feels like. Well, if you try to simply sit there and then fight against those 3 or 4 utility pieces all at once, of course you're at a disadvantage. This is something that happens to a lot of players, maybe because the fight or flight instinct kicks in and they get kind of overwhelmed. But what you need to start doing is to use counter utility and start trading utility pieces. If the enemy team throws their stuff at you to execute, then give them a taste of their own medicine. Of course, something like a molly is very basic and great, but it doesn't end there. A well-timed reveal, flash, shock dart, seize or whatever pretty much can turn the tides back in your favor. The same thing is true in slower rounds. Let's say you play attack on bind and the enemy team smokes off showers. Don't just stand in front of that smoke and do nothing, giving them all that control for free. Trade some util, use a flash to force them off the angle and pressure them. It might not feel like much, but from their perspective, they might have to fall back now that you could be in showers, and so the pressure draws some rotates or forces out more abilities from them. Point is, if the enemy team uses their util properly and you fail to pressure them back with your own and force them off spaces, then you will be at a major disadvantage and sit there with your gun out, not knowing what to do, while for them the game feels smooth sailing. Now, as mentioned before, next to utility, your mechanics are your bread and butter in Valorant. So if you haven't seen my guide on how to improve your mechanics yet, it's linked right here. Go check it out. I'll see you there.